Welcome to Extra AI, the podcast where we extract the raw truths about artificial intelligence and its real world impact. I'm your host, Raghu Banda. And today we're diving into the fascinating intersection of AI, legal marketing, and culture building with Anthony Karls, a visionary entrepreneur who transformed a simple idea into a 15 million ARR law firm and now leads Rocket Clicks, helping law firms nationwide grow and thrive. Anthony's story is a masterclass in scaling businesses with a human touch, all while integrating AI and digital strategies to drive success. We'll unpack his journey from startup to boardroom, explore how AI is revolutionizing legal marketing, and learn how unlocking team strengths can create unstoppable momentum. So buckle up. This is going to be an eye-opening conversation that challenges the way we think about AI in service industries and beyond.
Welcome back. And today we are going to have an interesting conversation. We are going to talk about building culture, clients, and conversations. And I have a guest, Mr. Anthony Karls. So, Anthony, I can call you Tony or Anthony.
What is? Yeah, you can call me Tony. That'd be perfect.
Tony. So, welcome on board, Tony. I know you have had a unique journey building a law firm as a non-lawyer, I believe.
Yep.
And scaling it to 15 million ARR and now leading Rocket Clicks to transform this legal marketing. Could you share a bit of your background, maybe a personal story or a professional story about how you ended up here doing some kind of AI stuff in the context?
Yeah. Interesting background. I never thought I'd be in this industry. I was studying to be a CPA and I got pulled into a marketing agency that for some reason counted for the credits for the CPA. It was all about numbers and data, and I'm sure that's why. But I fell in love with marketing after that because there's so much psychology and data attached to that psychology when you do digital advertising. So I really fell in love with that. Had done a bunch of management in the past in manufacturing and warehouse environments. So I quickly was responsible for a team, was good with numbers, and could run and leverage a team. And within a couple of years of that job, so that was with a parent company called BizLab, and we kind of saw where the business was going, and I requested to be part of a team to figure out where we were going to go next. And the two options were going to be either a roofing company or a law firm. And we landed on a law firm because it had slightly more stipulations in terms of what was required to start. One being one of the partners needs to have a law degree. Start a roofing company, you need a ladder and a hammer. So basically anybody can do it. So we like that. We also love the fact that the space was pretty unoptimized.
Right.
So even today, 94% of family law firms are 68,000 in the country, in the United States. 94% have fewer than 3 attorneys. So it's an extraordinarily fragmented marketplace. So we love that because we could bring real marketing, real operations into a space that's extraordinarily fragmented and doesn't really grow very well. So that was around 2014, and I would say the AI part of this, one of the I would say there's a lot of things that AI is doing more than it used to, but AI has been around for a really long time, in my opinion. So especially in the digital space. And when an example is when you think about paid advertising, really good paid advertisers, they're going to leverage on Google search, for instance, they're going to leverage Google's AI tools to their advantage and essentially make the AI work harder to find the users that are actually going to convert and not allow them to use lazy events or easy events or easy conversion types to optimize for, because they'll just go find those. They'll find those more easily. So if you give them a harder game to play, it'll play it and you'll get a better return on ad spend. So it's something we've been doing for a really long time, and it's all about data integration and feedback loops so that we can better train our advertising campaigns and so on and so forth so that we can drive better ROI for our clients.
Hmm. Great background and a great backstory. So I know most folks don't associate with uh, the search engine optimization or team performance with AI, but your approach seems to kind of merge both of them. What is that particular aha moment, if I have to bring it, and what changed your thinking or changed the way you thought about this business?
Change the way we thought about our law firm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, I think when we did our original research, we saw how um, law firm owners, like, they're in a really difficult position, being that they're small businesses. So they are the practitioner at work. They
mm-hmm.
are the person in charge of HR and payroll and benefits and all of those things. They're the person in charge of hiring. They're the person in charge of measuring operations. They're basically in charge of everything for
Everything.
a couple
Mm-hmm,
people. And
mm-hmm.
it's really hard for them to scale. And when we looked at the industry, what we saw was that means they really can't become experts at a lot of different things because they have to do a good job legally or they're not going to have a practice. Which means if we came in and brought our expertise digitally and operationally and culturally, like, we could build a very different law firm than many other that exist.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what kind of AI transforming techniques or digital marketing strategies that at Rocket Clicks you focus on when you are working with these law firms, or what are the strategies, some of the strategies that you
Yeah.
focus on?
So on the SEO side, one of the things that we see uh, that's most painful to observe when we get a new client in is there's a concept called interlinking. So if your content on your site isn't interlinked together, all the authority that you built is wasted. And it's a really labor intensive process prior to leveraging AI.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've built bots that now will scan. It doesn't matter the size of the website. We've worked with sites that are 50,000 pages and sites that are a couple hundred, right? Um, we can have the AI run, uh, scrape the whole site, organize it, identify the content pillars, and then identify the clustering opportunities for all the content for us to then go implement. So the speed at which that's able to have an impact from an ROI perspective is massively significant because those projects typically were like year-long projects depending on the size of the site. And this has shortened that to 2 to 3 months potentially if it's a 50,000 page website. Uh, so that's one of the things, and then that significantly increases your rank, which helps you drive more leads, and then
Mm-hmm.
you get more business and your business grows. On the paid advertising side, kind of mentioned a little bit earlier,
Mm-hmm.
uh, a lot of paid advertisers, from our perspective here at Rocket Clicks, is they will do the minimum to get by. And,
Right.
like, so the minimum to me, like the minimum viable product, if you think about it from an MVP perspective, is you're tracking calls and web leads. If I were to grade that on an A to F scale, I'd
Mm-hmm.
give it like a C minus. It's not very good because you're going to
Okay.
get a bunch of junk. And what I mean by that is, based on all our data internally and the clients we work with, for every 100 leads you get, you're only going to schedule about 22 consultations out of that if you're doing it really, really well, which means 78 of those leads you don't want to optimize for. But when you're optimizing for phone calls and web leads, you are optimizing for the wrong metric versus optimizing for a scheduled consult. So your ROI is super impacted by the fact that you're not forcing the AI into platforms, whether that's Google or Meta or whatever, to um, you're not forcing it to train itself on the quality. You're just
Mm-hmm.
forcing it when you're um, optimizing for phone calls and web leads versus if you're integrating the data in your CRM, pushing offline conversions back into the CRM and forcing the AI tools that they use to identify user metrics and behaviors and all of those things that they don't necessarily give you access to. If you
Mm-hmm.
force their system to leverage those different aspects in a much harder game by saying, don't look at the 100 leads, look at the 20 consults, you're going to get a way different ROI, significantly enhanced. And then you're going to be able to spend more money, more profitably, make better investments, and have a better return on spend.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be two specific and general, like specific ways that we see opportunities in just about every single account that we get across or come across our desk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So to take this further, I know when you're using some of these techniques, AI techniques, I know it is great in finding some kind of hidden patterns, right? I
Mhm.
think uh, so. Using your technology or your tools, how do you uncover some of these pain points that the clients or your customers are facing to
Mhm.
improve this lead generation? Because I know you are already talking about that. Okay, out of the 100 clicks, I think maybe 22% of them might turn out to be customers, or maybe even a percentage of that.
Yeah.
So there are some hidden patterns, right? I think you will have to learn from that. So how do you leverage that, or what kind of things that you, as Rocket Clicks, you kind of try to bring in?
Yeah. So one of the things that we really try to coach our clients on, so it's a couple different areas. So one is with data. Data integrity, I think, is super important. And a lot of CRMs are not set up to capture the right information to even allow the AI to start doing its analysis. Once you have what we call the waterfall data, which is all of the events that occur from the point of a user visiting your website all the way through a funding and of an agreement, and you're marking those events appropriately,
Mm-hmm.
you can now start to see like what's happening and why, whether it's like for instance, we know at Sterling that in from on day one, only day one after the consultation, you're only going to get 5% of your sales. Day
Mm-hmm.
7, day 2 through 14, you're going to get 25%, an additional 25% of your sales. So, like, once we were able to comb that data and understand what was happening, we were able to then build a better follow-up process for our intake team, which
Mm-hmm.
means our closing rates were higher, which means we needed less leads and less consultations to get the same amount of money. Um, so that's like one way we do um, client sentiment online. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
a huge opportunity. So, one thing that we do with clients, when they come in, is we will pull all of their reviews and have AI do a sentiment analysis on that,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll go and address all of the things that are negative on the site, like and talk about it in a positive way. How do we spin this into something positive? How do we create? How do we craft um, expectations around communication? So oftentimes lawyers are notoriously known for not communicating well,
Mm-hmm.
according to the client. And so what that means is A, do we have awareness of that? We can pull that from reviews. B, what's our client communication strategy that we could literally publish online and then basically create an SLA for how we're going to communicate with our clients. And AI can really help you understand where you have some really bad sentiment um, from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
um, let's see. I think another good opportunity is um, so one of the things that we do internally is we've developed a an AI program that essentially lives in all of our attorneys' inboxes,
Uh-huh.
and it's to what it the point of it is to quickly analyze what's there, draft a potential response, and like keep the attorney's inbox as clean as possible so that
Mm-hmm.
we can save the time of processing. Is this a relevant email or not? What's the type of response? I've probably responded to this before. Like there's all these things that happen, and setting up the shell of an email
Mm-hmm.
is about 60% of the energy. So AI can do that for you super easily. And
Right.
then your attorney's brain power is not in okay, I got to get an email because John just emailed me and I got to reset up how I'm going to format this based on John and all that stuff. You can leverage AI to do that for you and just pre-set up your inbox. And then you have to audit all of it and make sure you're sending the right email and it's not just running by itself, but it can save so much time. So there's a lot of hidden costs
Mm-hmm.
in a business. And you know, when we were introduced to ChatGPT and I think 22 we really started investing it. Maybe it was 21, I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The person that talked to us about it was he just said you got to just spend a lot of time FAFO. Like you just got to spend a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
screwing around and figuring out what works. So um and we did a lot of that, basically asking the team like where are problems, where are time sucks, where is the business not functional. Another one we found is when you hire call center people, you get tons and tons of applications.
Okay.
AI is great at you can pull the applications straight into a resume screening bot. So instead of your like super expensive HR resource
Mm-hmm.
scanning all of these resumes, instead they can spend more time looking at the quality ones and moving them forward in the application process versus being buried by 200 resumes a day for one job posting. So I think there's a lot of opportunities, and I think um, there's a really good opportunity to make it. I think that's where the culture piece comes in, because if you encourage your team to work together and know it's not going to be perfect at the beginning, but
Right.
you're going to continually iterate it, you create a really big culture of collaboration within the team.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think you also talk about something like the role of Google Maps or the Net Promoter Score, right? I think what is that while using AI or building your so-called lead engine, right? That you always wanted. Could you
Mhm.
elaborate a bit more about that? Like, what do you mean by building this, and maybe a few thoughts
Yeah,
around it?
so like one of the things that um, we talk about, or one of our concepts that we kind of follow is I think everybody's or a lot of people have probably seen Costco's price flywheel,
Mm-hmm.
where if that makes sense. So they get customers, which means they increase their buying power, and their increased buying power will help them add more customers, and they'll get better access to products, and it just like goes in a big circle, right? So the same thing exists in a law firm, and it's a service flywheel. There's not much difference. And essentially, when we create happy clients by having good service design and operational efficiencies and communicating well, our clients are happy. That will increase referrals and increase online reviews. That's going to increase our feedback loop on what's working, what they like, what they appreciate, so we can talk about it more in the marketplace to refine our unique selling proposition, which increases our doing that increases our um, opportunity from a revenue perspective, so we can invest more in our service design and operational efficiencies, creating a better experience for our clients, making more happy clients, which creates more
Mm-hmm.
referrals and more online reviews. So it's really a cycle, um, and I think where the opportunity is like really thinking about a law firm from a service design perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and having AI help you identify where the patterns are and where your service might be broken, or where there's data points that you're not considering, or even doing simple things like auditing. AI is good at if you want to run your customer records um, through ChatGPT, for instance, and identify like what was the follow-up sequence based on these three sets of data. Here's the customer record. Here's all the outbound emails. Um, here's the outbound phone calls. What's the pattern of success? Like
Mm-hmm.
how many communication attempts do we need to make to get to get the next step of the process going forward? Um, so instead of guessing and just making things up as you go, you can really leverage data analysis. It's hard to do because it's unstructured, unorganized data sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and AI can sift through it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So now coming back to this, I know this. I would like to take a step back and get into this culture first organization that you're talking about, right? I think I know your involvement in Sterling Lawyers, right? I think where you are focusing on, like I know you're talking about this net promoter score and everything, like the beautiful example that you have provided about how you're mimicking some of these things, like a warehouse or a Costco kind of a business is implementing on the law firm side. When you compare that, and then I know you're one of those non-lawyers, but you're part of the Sterling Lawyers
Right.
organization, right? I think how do you how are you focusing on building this culture first organization, and how AI can help foster and measure that? Any thoughts about that? I know a lot of small and medium law firms are struggling in scaling their operations, right?
Yeah. I think where AI is it, I think it's a level setter. Like basically what AI is generally doing is making access to information equal to everybody. Because
Mm-hmm.
in the very near future, if not already today, it's already the smartest person in the room. You just have to ask it questions. Um, so which ultimately means if you can get your team together to start identifying where there's issues, where's the data for those issues, and like start collaborating, you can start building processes together that are going to significantly enhance your culture. So like the inbox tool I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
that started just as an idea from one of our attorneys. His name is Jeff Morrell,
Mm-hmm.
and he built it for himself. And then a couple attorneys in the office um, wanted to use it. They didn't necessarily like all the different things that Jeff was doing. He didn't either. Like he was using it, but he wasn't really using it because he was just trying to figure it out. But then there was like three or four of them meeting all the time on like, hey, I wish you could do this, or what about this, and what about that? And then they continued just to develop it and iterate it over time, and that created a really strong culture in that office. And eventually, that office um, kind of spearheaded rolling it out to the rest of the firm, and it's created operational efficiencies for everybody in the organization across our four different operational hubs. So I think it's a really good opportunity um, to create opportunities for collaboration. On the measurement side, I think that I don't think we've really solved. I mean, there's
Okay.
probably some good ideas on how to leverage AI to help from a measurement perspective. I mean, I know
Mm-hmm.
we do it from an NPS and kind of leverage it from like operational efficiencies, but I don't know how much we've thought about applying it to improving improving the business from a culture perspective, but like in terms of measurement. So um, I guess the one place we probably have is every quarter we do a so we have about 89 to 95 team members. So every quarter we do a survey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's probably one area that we could start leveraging it because it's all unstructured data. It's all just feedback. And then we have a team that assesses all of the feedback that we get every quarter to identify like what could we do next, and like similar to a sentiment analysis that you could do with reviews, like we could leverage the same thing from a
And this
um,
is with Rocket Clicks or Sterling Lawyers?
this is with Sterling Layer. So that's one
This is
thing
with
that we
Sterling.
do at Sterling is um, we call it a culture survey. Every quarter we run one, and then we get just on a Google form. But then we could easily run that through AI to do an analysis on all the questions and the feedback and what are potential solutions to give that to a we have a culture committee that essentially there's like 9 or 10 of them that look at all that feedback and figure out what we could do to make changes in the org that are positive for the team and for the business.
So here, when we talk about culture and personality strengths and other things, do you also blend some kind of psychometric data or behavioral insights to do some kind of performance tracking or something like that using these AI tools, or any thoughts in that?
Um, so we do a bunch of personality assessment
Mm-hmm.
uh, for our team internally.
Mm-hmm.
That's really for trying to understand how do we pair the team together better.
Mm-hmm.
So there's typically it's a couple different paradigms that we really focus on: present versus future oriented, and logic versus relational, and then kind of an innovation scale. And we use a tool called Five Voices, and we can generally assess those three different paradigms on that. And then when you look at your team's construction, um, you can see like where you may or may not be getting the right type of feedback.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's that's something that we do use. We don't use we could use AI with it. I don't think we haven't in the past, because it
Mm-hmm.
would blending. We measure lots of things operationally. Um, I'm sure there's a pattern. You talked about hidden patterns. Like, it's just a live idea. I'm sure there's a pattern of personality profiles and closing in the consultation room or setting appointments on the phone that have higher tendencies in terms of success than others. Because that's generally uh, we have gut instincts on it, but we've never really run it through a real
Mm-hmm.
assessment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know we talked about a bit about culture and this things about scaling the organizations and the services, but I want to get back a bit into the mistakes or these law firms make. I think there might be some. Uh, you've been building the services, or you've been in this business of building AI tools for the law firms. What are those top five or top 5 to 7 costly mistakes you see that law firms are making, and how you can do you think um, AI can help fix them, or maybe even preempt them, so that it's easier for the law firms to understand that, hey, this is where I'm kind of doing something wrong, and I can address this, so that you can increase the feedback loop, or you can get return customers, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, in the like from a marketing and sales and operations perspective, I think some of the biggest opportunities that are missed.
Mhm.
I'll probably start with the fact that I think one of our most unique advantages is we are obsessed with getting client feedback. So we survey clients at three different intervals, right after the consultation. That's one of our ways to monitor how well are we actually performing there, because it's the easiest survey to get a good score on. Basically, did the client was the client heard? Did they feel like they were understood, and like did you give them a future that they can um, that they're excited about walking down with you? It's like this is really easy because like you haven't gotten into hard stuff yet.
Mhm.
Uh, we ask 90 days into the file, how are you doing, and then we ask after. uh, what that's given us is so much insight in terms of what the customers want,
Mhm.
instead of just assuming we know. And like I think that's one of the biggest mistakes firms make, is they shy away from getting the real feedback. Like just get them all to tell you what they don't like, what they like
Right.
and what they don't like about what you're doing. And then, you know, use the information that you get wisely. Um, so I think that's definitely one of them. I think there's a lot of opportunity in most firms from a follow-up perspective, and really understanding like what's the normative sales cycle for anybody that does a consultation. And
Mhm.
you're gonna have that data in your CRM, and AI can definitely help you see that pattern, and it will inform your call center team, your intake team, on what they should be doing to do follow-ups. It'll help you understand what automation tools you should
Mhm.
consider, so that it's not just all on your intake team, and you're making sure that that's happening. So that would be a second one. I think there's a lot of hidden time in firms, in attorneys' inboxes.
Mhm.
That that is a it's it. I don't think that'll really ever go away, but I think it can be lessened. Like it
Right.
can, the weight of that can go down
Mhm.
significantly. I think in terms of on the website, um, the one of the biggest issues we see even in 2025 is sites are so slow. Like they don't load fast enough. And in the family law space, 82% of your users are going to be on a mobile device. And most of the time, like the percentage of those devices that are like in the last 2 or 3 releases, it's only about 20 to 30%, which means there's a lot of old devices that are trying to load big files and it's not optimized. And you're going through the process of trying to identify what to optimize where and like what's going to have the biggest impact. There's a lot of data there.
Mm-hmm.
And AI can really help you sift through that. There's different tools that are available that will give you insight. Um, and then kind of aggregating that data and getting an assessment is another, because that the faster your site is, the higher your conversion rates are going to be, the more leads you're going to generate. It's one of the easiest buttons to push. Just make your site faster. Um, and then I think I think another significant one. I don't know how AI could help it other than like doing some competitive analysis to help you understand the marketplace better. A lot of attorneys do everything. Like they'll do family law and they'll do criminal defense and they'll do personal injury and they'll do estate planning and they'll do like a little bit of everything. Uh, when you do a little bit of everything, what you're opting for is building that many businesses. If you're running 4 different practice areas, you're literally building operations for 4 different client types because a criminal client looks very different than a family client, looks very different than a personal injury client. Um, and that's a mistake that we see often, and it really inhibits their growth because now when you're trying to communicate with search engines or different AIs that are going to present your firm in front of customers, I don't think you're like they dis they delegitimize you because they can't tell what you're actually good at because you're saying you're good at everything and you can't be. Your site's not big enough. You don't have enough authority. You're a smaller firm. So is it okay that you do those things internally? Yeah. Should they be all displayed on your homepage and be the biggest display banner? Probably not. Um, so like what is really your unique in the marketplace and how can you get focused so that you can better leverage all the tools because being a general practitioner it's really hard to grow those businesses. So those would be probably the
Beautiful.
biggest 5 that I'd pick.
Okay. Okay. So, is there any, I know we don't want to talk about the names of the customers or the clients, but any publicly shareable information or a client story that you could tell how Rocket Clicks use these AI automation tools or your data-driven strategy to drastically improve a particular firm's performance?
Yeah.
Any story or any
Yeah. So there
things that you would love to
two
share?
come to mind. So we have a client down in Miami. They've been struggling to like really grab market share down there.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's because they weren't working on the right stuff. So all we just implemented our roadmap and our playbook because we know based on all of our data from our firm, like here are the most important things to work on. Like if like um, we know of it's roughly of people that hire lawyers, about 40% of them are going to hire them from Google. Of those users, 42% of them are going to use the map. So if you're not in the map, like you're not going to rank. And like there's a lot of things you can do to do that very easily. It's not hard work. It's typically boring work for SEOs because it's just we got to build consistent map profiles across all these different domains, and we need to keep an eye on all these different sites because people can go in and change it whenever they want willy-nilly. So implementing that strategy for them like really helped them grow um, pretty quickly where they had within 3 months their lead growth was 30% higher from the prior year, and it was all simple things. I think we have another big client. This one's not in the family law space. This is a
Mm-hmm.
fairly large bank up in the Northeast. They're one of the big sites that I was mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did with them was we ran their site and did a big clustering project. and it has massively improved their digital visibility and uh, increased their throughput on new depositors and people that are taking out loans because now they're visible online. And
Mhm.
the biggest thing we did was just interlink their content on their site, and AI was a huge help with that because it's a massive site. We're not experts in banking, like that's not anybody on our team, but leveraging AI, we can see like it could assess the content pillars, what should exist, what's missing, how do we interlink all this stuff, um, so that the site performs better. So like those are probably the two biggest ones
Sure.
that I could think about mentioning. I
Sure.
mean,
Sure.
we use it on all of them, honestly.
Mhm.
Like I think where it's changing the industry is, like I said before, I think from an energy consumption perspective for team members,
Mhm.
I think a good 60% of the energy is spent in just setting up a base.
Right.
Whether
Right.
that's I got to write an article, what's the base of the outline? And AI can do such a good job
Right.
giving you a base and then you can tweak it. So like the speed at which you can produce really good stuff exponentially goes up because and it saves mental time and energy for the team. And they're actually doing more of those things that they like to do versus less of the things they don't like to do because they're offloading it to their AI bots.
Right. Right. So I think I know, great. I think there's some great examples that you have provided. I know you folks might be constantly evaluating your tools or your features, your solutions internally as well, right? I think how do you mm, maybe you're also setting up some KPIs about how we are converting these clients or customers from clicks to conversations, and that can matter more. Any
Yeah.
benchmarks or any things, or how do you internally analyze this?
Yeah, that so I mentioned before we have what we call the waterfall, and most
Right.
businesses don't have one built. And it's
Mhm.
essentially just what happens. What are all the events that happen before a user interest, like the way we phrase it internally, is how do we measure how interest turns into a dollar? What are all of the events and are we tracking them? Because that's actually what matters. No business owner cares if you get more clicks or more platform conversions if it isn't turning into revenue and that
Mhm.
revenue isn't profitable. Maybe you're getting more revenue, but maybe it's more expensive and now I'm making less money. Like
Mhm.
that's not a win. Or maybe I'm getting clicks and conversions in platform, but it's not turning into revenue. So like the real things we need to measure are those. We push that a lot. We actually kind of downplay a lot of what's in platform, and we call it vanity metrics, like impression share, clicks, conversions, all of that stuff. It doesn't matter because it's all vanity. Because what really matters is the business owner's bottom line. Like, are they making more? Do they have higher revenues with better profits? Because if they don't, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You might just be being active. You're not really being productive.
Right. Yeah, beautiful. I think it comes to the most important question of our podcast. I would term it the extra AI question, or the $1 million or the $1 billion question. I know the space is very crowded, right? I think there are a lot of agencies here. What is that secret sauce, or is there something that differentiates yourself or your firm from this competition out there? And how
Yeah,
do
I mean,
you? Yeah.
I think what makes Rocket Clicks very different is how integrated we are with Sterling Lawyers. So
Mm,
there's this shared ownership group. So we get to actually intimately see what's happening inside the business versus
right.
being just an outsider. So, and it's our own firm, and we built. We're one of the larger firms in the United States. We're probably in the top 15. So like we've been there and we've done it before, and like we understand the right questions to ask and how to set up data and how to structure it, and like how to start thinking about implementing these different tools and what are the right types of people to potentially hire, especially now that AI is available, because that's changing the game. So I think for us, kind of in this space where there's a lot of agencies that are going after law firms, we're going after just family law firms
Hmm.
because we have a family law firm. we've already done it before, and now we're continuing to do it and continuing to grow our firm. But we can kind of leverage all the things that we've done and share it with the world and help them grow their businesses too.
Right. I think you're mentioning earlier that majority of the law firms are, I think, these smaller family
Yeah.
law firms, right? I think what is some percentage you've mentioned, like,
Yeah, it's like 94% or three or fewer attorneys.
wow, wow,
It's very
and
fragmented. So
very
when we,
fragmented. Yep, yep.
yeah,
And
when
you
we,
guys are currently focused in US law, or are you also focused outside of US?
yeah, so we're currently focused US side with family law firms. That's who our ideal customer profile is.
Mhm. Beautiful. And I really love the conversation. What are those? I know with a lot of this innovation happening with AI and generative AI and a lot of these tools coming out there, there is this genuine fear or genuine questions people are facing, right? And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter whether it is the technology sector, law firms, or whether it is the manufacturing sector or retail sector. People have this genuine fear, like how do you manage a business, or how do we stay on top of the business? Any insights or any thoughts that you would like to provide to these uh, entrepreneurs in this legal space?
Yeah. I mean, I think like what's really important is often what's boring and not sexy. So I think a lot of the best things to do are, in American football, it's blocking and tackling, it's your lineman, right? It's not the running back, it's not the fancy stuff. And what that is, in from my perspective in a law firm, it's measuring your waterfall numbers. How many users turn into phone calls, how many of those phone calls turn into leads, how many of those leads are qualified, so on and so forth. And then how well are you servicing your customers? And like, how are you measuring how you're doing? And then you see that at a business view, and you can also see that as an individual for individual team members. And then you can optimize performance and figure out what's actually going on in their day to day, seeing where their problems might be. Because some people are, you have people that are, um, in our Five Voices program, um, a connector, that's one of the first order voices. They're great with people, but they're not very good with details. So, like, okay, so some of the things that you might need to work on, or someone you might need to pair with, would be a guardian. And like, how do we help you grow? Because you can perform well. It's just like, how do we help understand where you are and improve your performance? I think back to your question. I think it's you got to measure um, your stuff, and I think another thing is not only measuring your waterfall, but having a really strongly structured P&L so that you understand like how much of your revenue is in cost of service, how much is allocated to SG&A, and then what's your profit margin look like? Because you should, in a book that we're writing there, we kind of detail out exactly the waterfall. We detail out exactly the percentages for the P&L and how to think about all the different buckets and how they interplay with each other. None of it's sexy. It's all boring. I think I think that's where the secret is for anybody that wants to be a very successful law firm owner, is just looking at those, basic things.
Beautiful, beautiful, amazing. Any how if I know you've running Rocket Clicks as well as working very closely with Sterling Lawyers. I think you learn what is happening out there in the market and also building the tools.
Yeah.
What is the best way for the people to reach out to you or work with you?
Yeah. So you can find us at rocketclicks.com. You can also, find me on socials at Carl's Carl's underscore Anthony or Carl's.Anthony on most platforms. So yeah, we're happy to help. We'll tell you the truth. We want you to be successful. Like we've done it for ourselves, so we're just trying to help other people do it. So
Beautiful. I like the aspect that you put right. You've done it for yourself, and now you're kind of helping the other law firms out there. And that, like you said, that the market is so fragmented, and this is with all this AI and generative AI tools out there, I think it's great that, and I really learned a lot about this in this short conversation. And
Yeah.
thanks for your time.
Yeah, this was awesome. I appreciate it.
Anthony, thank you for sharing your incredible journey and shedding light on how AI is shaping the future of legal marketing. And more importantly, how to build high performing teams that scale with integrity. To our extra AI community, remember, AI isn't just about technology, it's about people, processes, and the cultures we build around them. Stay curious, stay inspired, and keep asking the bold questions that move the world forward. If you'd like to learn more about Anthony's work, visit rocketclicks.com and connect with him on LinkedIn. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a beat on the Extra AI podcast. Until next time, happy predicting the future with AI technologies and stay extra.